Okay, so Pythagoras. Yeah, so I said a little bit yesterday, just a little bit, just so you know, 570 to 495, is that right? Double check this, I think that's right, 570. Yes, that's right, okay. And he lived on an island in the Aegean Sea where he started, and he started this religious cult, of sorts, a cult at least. And the cult, wherever they went, the cult was shrouded in secrecy. They lived isolated, although they were close to other people, but they kept to themselves. They had very little contact with the outside world, whatever communities were nearby. And the things that they did, people are only, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but it seems like if there's a group or a religion or whatever, that or a club or organization that does things secretly, that has like secret ceremonies and has secret things that they do, that's part of their, whether it's a fraternity or the Masons or whoever, maybe we don't know what goes on inside those things. It's almost a tendency that we want to speculate and then maybe start guessing and maybe start making stuff up that goes on inside those. So, there's conspiracy theories like the Freemasons are taking over the world and they're controlling the government from behind the scenes. And
the Denver airport.
Yeah. You missed a whole course on this. No, some of you took it though.
Donald Trump is secretly running the world with a satanic cult.
Yes, well, I heard something along those lines, a little different, but yes, that's one of the ones that's. Okay, so there's plenty of conspiracy theories, but yeah, they start making stuff up. It seems, I don't know, maybe it's kind of human nature to. Boy, I wonder what they're doing in there. They sure are secretive, and then well, I think they maybe they really don't know, but anyway. So anyway, shrouded in secrecy, and the people in this island of in the Aegean didn't care for this, so they chased this cult off of the island. They forced them to leave. It was like a violent type situation. And then he went onto the mainland of Italy and started with this cult and got restarted there. The same thing happened there. After some time, they were chased out of this town and they were moved to another town in the south of Italy. Not moved, they just had to move on. They weren't welcome, I guess. And that's where they eventually settled and no one bothered them. Yes?
Is he the head of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, not the one your math teacher tells you about. Okay. Set him up to be some kind of demigod or something with triangles, but truth is he's a little bit of a nut. Yes.
It's kind of unrelated, but they took all the stuff at the Denver airport. Like last time I was there, I was there with my dad. I was like, we need to find the creepy stuff. I was like looking everywhere. They didn't have anything.
Well, I'm sure they didn't take the murals down.
They did. I didn't see. Well, okay, that was.
I genuinely believe the Denver airport thing.
It's
but I have to check and see. The murals they paid an awful lot of money for, so.
And the Blue Horse.
And the Blue Horse, which is.
So what's wrong with the Denver airport?
There's like a lot of sketchy stuff about it.
Last time I was there was a bunch of art that was supposed to depict womanhood.
Oh, really?
A bunch of wooden sculptures that vaguely resembled sexual organs.
They also went like $10 billion over budget for like no real reason. Like when they built
Standard government project.
And then just like randomly 5 times when people thought the world was gonna end, Obama just happened to be there while he was president, like giving speeches. And Trump.
This is what happens. See, we don't know what's going on. We start to just make stuff up all of a sudden. Start to connect disconnected dots, and then we have a story all of a sudden. Well, that's funny. I have to check about that. My sister was in Denver about that mural cost them an awful lot of money, and I'm sure I know the horse cost somebody. The artist died, making that sculpture. Yeah, bad way to go to have your legs severed, and then no one's in the studio with you, and you just bleed out.
And they still put it up.
Yeah, part of the horse fell on him. A demonic horse killed its own maker.
I can't believe this.
It's outside the airport, I mean.
That's what I think. They put the statue up, so that's probably.
Yeah, I mean,
It's probably still like covered in blood if you look close
they had to
enough.
wipe it down. They got some handy wipes. And
The aliens probably changed it.
I'm sure it's the alien. Is anyone Mormon, by the way? I just totally, not that I'm gonna change what I'm gonna say, I'm not trying to shelter myself, indemnify myself or anything. Okay, I just want, hope you could, if you were, you could add something to this, but, the Mormons have this similar history. I mean, I don't wanna compare them to this at all, but, where they do some things in secret, that their ceremonies and things like that. I thought I was going to a Mormon wedding one time. It turns out the time that I was invited to come was actually just a reception for the wedding. The wedding itself, I was not allowed to attend. I couldn't go into I didn't know that. I mean, this was years ago. So I enjoyed the reception. I'd like to be, if any of you get married and you invite me, just invite me to the reception, okay? I'd like to just, and I'll talk about the wedding like I was there, but I'm really just coming for the food and fellowship. But anyway, they have ceremonies they do in private that only their people can be a part of, and that's their right, and that's fine. But this also, so I think the Mormon journey begins in upstate New York, and then they eventually ended up, I think, in Ohio, and then they were in Illinois for a while, and then they were not too far away. They were in Missouri, around St. Joseph, Missouri, that area, and then part of the church remains, which is called the Reformed Church of, there's a different name for it, but anyway, that they're headquartered, it's still in St. Joseph because they stayed there. They're the ones who believed that Joseph Smith's son was the leader apparent of the church. So they stayed in Missouri, and the other larger part of the group followed Brigham Young to Salt Lake City.
There was a third group.
There's a third group.
There was a third group that split off and went to Arkansas because they were massacred in Missouri and they
Yeah, they have
they got
to.
scared and left the church and went to Arkansas.
There's actually some
I
pretty,
know this because I'm related to them.
there's, say again,
I said I know this because I'm related to
you're related to some of them. Okay, well, the ones with Arkansas.
the
Okay.
ones who left the church and have been banned from Easter.
Uh-huh.
Remember the ones that went to Mexico when that happened?
See, now you guys are telling me things I don't know.
There's like a huge like, Mormon population.
But has that come later though? I think, I don't know, did they go to Mexico from Missouri, or did they,
I don't
maybe
know
been
if that
evangelized since then?
Like a lot of them like moved like permanently there in a huge compound. It's like where Mitt Romney's from. It's like
Yeah, Mexico or New Mexico?
no, like Mexico. Remember like,
So Mitt
remember,
Romney's
like
from-
a year ago, like I don't know if he was born there, but he lived there. His dad like started like that.
Yeah.
Remember like a year ago, whenever like Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
Yeah, no, there's, if
Like, you don't have to
John
go to
McCain
the
was
US.
born in Panama, his dad was
You
born in
just need
Panama.
to be a born citizen.
You have to be, if you're born to US parents, yeah.
But like, remember like a year ago, whenever like 9 people like got killed in the car in Mexico and Trump like made a big deal out of it. Those were like Mormons that commuted back and forth.
Say that story one more time, I'm sorry.
Like remember like 9 people, like family all got like shot up in like their car in like Mexico.
I don't remember that, but.
That was like a big. Like,
I know, but
Trump
listen,
saying,
it's been a year of big
it's
stories,
legit.
okay? I'll
It was
just tell
born
you.
in Mexico. It's not
I mean,
making
I
it up.
believe you, just tell me the story, I believe you. Why would you make that up? So, no, you don't have to, I don't think you're making it up, you don't have to Google it.
That's a weird thing to make up.
Yeah, that's such a, that's why I believe you.
Yeah, the Mormon colonies in Mexico.
Okay, well, can I just say this, I know that the Mormon Church has a vested interest in evangelizing in Mexico, Central and South America, because, and even among Native American populations, because there's a belief, and if anyone knows someone who's Mormon, you can find out from them and tell me if I'm wrong, and I'll be happy to admit that I'm wrong. But they believe that the Native Americans, that includes those who are now in Central and South America, are part of a lost tribe of Israel that came over to what's now the Americas, North and Central and South America. Or they, I don't know what their immigration, like their migration story was, going from north to south or whatever, but they, and in fact, have been part of the Book of Mormon, a good portion of it takes place in what's now the United States.
Yeah.
So, and they came over in kind of an ark-like boat structure, you know, would have been quite a venture at that time. And that's their belief. So the idea is so much not of evangelization, Patrick, but actually a bringing back into the fold of these people who, because of Spanish conquest and Catholicism, they believe were, yeah. So anyway, that's because actually they believe that they're Jewish. Now, that being said, I don't know how they deal with the reality of DNA and science, and that nothing in their DNA indicates that they're of Semitic origin. They're coming from Asia, so I don't know how, but you know, religion runs into this every once in a while. Say again? He does work, and that's certainly a fair out, I suppose, to that. You know, God controls the DNA, so maybe it's just a test of faith. Anyway, I don't know how they, you know, there was actually a group of a kind of an area in New Mexico, and this was gave some Mormon scholars some hope that maybe they were onto something. That there was a group in New Mexico or an area community, people kind of remote, and they did a lot of like Jewish they around Hanukkah time they had, you know, the Hanukkah like a menorah, like they had a lot of Jewish like customs, and none of the people knew where they came from. Like, where did we get these customs from? And it was kind of a sociological, anthropological problem, not a problem, but an issue that, you know, that people want to know the answer to. And of course, the hope was, oh well, because they just held on. The group has held on to their kind of a remnant of the lost tribes of Israel. I don't know. So. Anyway, going back to my thing. So, but all these things, Amelia, you're talking about in Missouri, but not. I don't think in upstate New York, but definitely in Ohio and Illinois and Missouri, it came to like battles, like with guns, like with the local people, even police and military at times, fighting the Mormons, wanting them out or fighting them for different reasons. And this caused these movements. So you have that's actually a lot of traveling from, I mean, back in the post-Civil War era to move a big group of people from upstate New York to eventually all the way to Salt Lake City. That's quite a trek, walking and riding horses and buggies and all that. But anyway, a little bit like this. I don't want to compare the two things, but other than in their journey, perhaps people didn't like them being around, didn't like their customs, and they moved them on to the next town. Amelia, so maybe you already know this, but and a lot of Mormons don't know this. I don't know why. I've asked them, like, oh, and maybe they're just acting like they don't know. But St. Joseph, Missouri is still, though, to Mormons, what they call Zion. That St. Joseph is still sacred to other Mormons as well, the ones who went to Salt Lake City, and that was really where they wanted to stay. And they even believe that near St. Joseph, Missouri, is where the Garden of Eden was located. Now, I've been to St. Joseph, Missouri, and it's a quaint little community, but it's no Garden of Eden now. It's missing a few key things like the Tigris and Euphrates River. The Bible gives us some indication of where it's supposedly located, but it doesn't mention the Missouri River. That was one of those things. That's all I'm saying. Just, I've been there. It's nice, but
Not a lot of pictures.
not a lot of fruit growing in on the border of Kansas and Missouri up there. Yeah. All right. Of course, well, with God, all things are possible.
I don't remember talking about, and then I made all these videos in the garden.
Yeah, I mean, somebody creates the world in 7 days, and fruit trees are nothing, right? If you, okay, so some of the things that he was credited with, like you say, that was rumored that he was doing, is he could perform miracles, like he could heal people from illness, only people within his cult. That he had magical powers. He was a kind of a sorcerer of types, but there's no indication this was all real, but these are the kind of things that were floating around about Pythagoras. There were the cult part of his group. Because there's kind of a division, not a division, there's kind of two sides of things. One was a school of mathematics when they dealt with things mathematical, but these things have a merging point though, when mathematics and this kind of living style under the cult. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but the cult side, the more cult-like side, is had a concern not for mathematics necessarily, but for the soul, because they believed that the soul, your soul, their souls, were subject to a series of reincarnations. Your soul has lived before, and you've got it now. You've got the soul, and now someone will take it out over after you're done with it. But the goal is to stop the cycle of reincarnation. And you stop the cycle of reincarnation by following the strict rules of the cult. Yes. And when you do that, your soul is not recycled again and given to something else, but your soul goes on to a heavenly place and lives with the other souls who have perfected themselves and followed the rules of this cult life. The rules are bizarre, and they make no sense, a lot of them. A couple of them, maybe you can, force them to make some sense if you just think about it, maybe, but I don't know that they really make any sense, but I'll make a comment about that later. But if you wanted to be one of the favored ones in the cult, I'm sure that you would like to be seen following these rules and not breaking them. The first rule, and if you just want to write a couple of these down, it's okay, but the first one is important, that you had to be a vegetarian. They were vegetarians. So, and then, among religions, that's not exactly the oddest requirement. This is not one that I would include. The second one is that you had to abstain from eating beans. Yes. Now, I'll say two things about this. Are you vegetarian?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. So you're a pescatarian.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then you get your protein from that source then.
Yeah.
If you were a vegan, or someone who's a vegan, is anyone, by the way? Used to be, yeah, of course, someday, yeah. No, it's good. I mean, I'm sure it's fun. But anyway, but beans are an important part of a strict vegetarian's diet, a vegan's diet. That's your protein source, right? So to make people totally deprived of the protein, I mean, not totally. I guess there are some vegetables that have some protein. Okay, maybe, yeah. But you would still be pretty lean on protein, probably protein deprived, I would think. If you eat a lot of peanuts, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know how prevalent peanuts were in Greece, but so that's actually a really big thing, because we know now, and maybe they even knew then from experience, that this is actually a common tactic of cults today, is to put you on something they don't call like a purification diet or something, and they make you just eat rice, for 2 weeks or a month or something. I mean, like rice and water. Oh, you'll be fine. You'll cleanse your body and all that. The truth is that if you remain protein deprived over a period of time, not all that long really, your brain doesn't function properly. You're actually a little more open and susceptible, a little more malleable in your brain, open to maybe ideas or thoughts that you wouldn't have accepted before when you were healthier. Nutrition-wise, isn't it? Yeah, so you open up the mind for, so these cults won't tell you the weirdness about their cult until they've got you in a mental state, nutrition-wise, where you are open to this kind of thing. And so, anyway, some of the rules. Okay, so no beans and no meat. By the way, one more thing about the beans. I don't remember which one of these cities they get chased out of, or islands, or they get chased off of. The villagers or the local people were coming for them. Like in my mind, they have like torches and pitchforks, you know, and like an angry mob of people, you know, heading towards the Pythagorean cult village, you know, compound, chanting something. And then, and so the people in the cult make a run for it, and Pythagoras is leading them. They had to actually like flee for their lives, and they found themselves in between I'm trying to get ahead of myself. They found themselves between the angry people and a field of beans. And Pythagoras thought about it briefly and then led the way across the bean field, trampled the beans. Now, this is how I got ahead of myself. The reason he gave them for not eating beans is because he told them that you could be reincarnated as a bean. An animal, a human, or a bean. And you can try this yourselves at home. If you cut open a bean, like a kidney bean, Pythagoras, smart guy, right? The A squared stuff, that's all real good. He said, you can clearly see there's a human embryo inside of the bean. Try it at home. You can ask yourself. You look, just experiment yourselves and look and see. So, but he trampled over, like, you know, between his life and these reincarnated lives. Yeah, so, you know, usually that's the case, that the cult leader is not really fully on board with his own rhetoric. They're only in it for other reasons. But what are the two main reasons that the cult leaders are in this game for? What are they running? You know what they are? Money and power. Well, okay, maybe, but the power kind of comes with it, I guess, if you're sex, actually. Yeah, that people throwing themselves at you. You know, you're a godlike figure, and they want to procreate with you, or at least do the deed. So they with this godlike figure. So they know that, and they not only are they making money, but they well, you ever see the Office where Creed? I love Creed in the Office. He's like, in the interview, he's like, I've been involved in several cults back in the 60s and 70s. Sometimes as a leader, sometimes as a follower. Have more fun as a follower. Make more money as a leader, though.
Your dad is right, who believes in religion and cult. And no, but does the leader get to have as many wives as he wants?
Yeah, that's right. Or concubines, or yeah, whatever you.
Are there concubines?
Yeah, that'd be a good red flag, I would say. Okay, so those are the first two rules. You can see why trampling the bean field was not really seemed to be out of character for some people. He said beans are humans too. Right? So you could be reincarnated as an animal, another human, or a bean until you get it right. Okay, here are some other things that the cult had to do. Do not pick up anything that has fallen.
Anything?
Absolutely.
Drop it.
There you go.
It's gone.
I'm thinking their houses are just a total mess. You know, like having children would just ruin your home. Even adults eventually gonna drop enough stuff over time that, you know. So can you hire somebody from the outside to come in and do that? You know, let them do the sinning, and you know, I don't know, but do not pick up anything that's fallen. Do not touch a chicken. Why would you want to? You're not going to get to eat it either. I mean, you don't get any eggs or chicken legs or anything, so don't even bother.
Doesn't he think chicken are people though?
Possibly
So
that's
why
why.
is he?
Maybe that's why. Just to lift your hands off. I don't know why chickens are. Well, why not goats mentioned here? They were not allowed to bake bread, but they could get bread.
What do these people eat?
They could salad, no dressing. Well, I think they had balsamic vinegar in Greece. Thousand Island dressing. They were allowed to get bread from the outside. Someone else could bake it, but they were not allowed to bake bread themselves. When you got a loaf of bread, though, you were not allowed to eat the first slice off of a loaf. Like, I guess the baker had to oh, you're from the cult, okay. They would slice off like the end of it, and then Then you could break into the bread then from there on, right?
What if it dropped the bread?
Yeah, and they gotta go back then. You're not allowed to stoke a fire with an iron rod. A stick is okay, like a branch or something, not an iron rod though. When you take your pot or whatever you're cooking food in off the coals, you have to not use an iron rod, but a stick to like stir the coals around so there's no indentation left of the pot that was sitting in the coals there. Like you can't leave any evidence or yeah. But again, not with an iron rod. Has to be. So your fireplace tools you have next to you, those are out. You gotta use all organic things. Let me see here. This one here I think is good. This one I can make some sense of, like the preservation of the coal. Do not walk on the roadways. It's like your mom told you. Most of your moms probably told you don't play in the street. Not all of your moms, but some of your moms. Hey, don't play in the street. Do not walk on the roadways. A chariot might run you over and you lose a member of the cult.
I'm a friend of somebody who will tell you, hey, your cult is crazy.
Yeah, that's the important point of keeping you kind of confined, living under this kind of secrecy. Do not let a bird share your roof. So, the homes have been a lot more open to the nature at the time. And so if a bird came flying in through a window or whatever, and you got to get it out. You got to get it out of your, can't have that. That makes total sense, doesn't it? I mean, come on. Birds, yeah. All right. When you rise from your bed, look the fire in the pot on the fire coals. When you rise from your bedroll in the morning, spread out your bedroll so you don't see the indentation of your body that was there. But this is also a lot like my mom used to tell me, just make your bed. Your house is a mess, but you can't pick any of that stuff up. But make your bed though. Spread out your, what's that?
What if the sheet falls on the floor?
Yeah, it's gonna be a cold night.
What if only a corner falls? Does that count or no?
It hits the ground there. I don't know. I have a feeling it's that like other religions, they found loopholes in these things. They found ways to. And there's a story in I think it's in the Old Testament where the Hebrew people had to be somewhere the next day, so they would walk and they were only allowed to walk a certain distance every day. On the Sabbath. So the day before they would walk and leave some kind of a marker as far as they got, and then they go back home. And then the next day, that distance doesn't count towards their distance they can walk that day, although they're walking it again. Actually, it would be more work, But there's finally these loopholes, probably. I imagine there was some. Okay, let's try to look at the letter of the law for this. All right. Another one is, do not look at your reflection. Like you're down below a creek or something, they don't want you to see how gaunt you look, either how horrible you look from just eating leafy lettuce all day.
Well, they're not the only religion that is forbidden reflection.
What's another one? Oh,
I don't know by name, but it's
okay.
fairly common mystical practice.
Yeah.
That's where A, evil spirits live, or B, you should not be so invested in yourself.
So the vanity, yeah.
Vanity and also the evil spirit who lives inside your mirror who will take you.
Sure. Yeah, the vanity part, there's something to that maybe, but I don't know. I know that a lot of Native American tribes didn't want their photo taken. They didn't want there to be, they believed somehow that kind of copied there was an image living of them, kind of a Harry Potter type thinking about photos and things. But then later, other more notable Native American chiefs and all that, they were they sold photos of themselves, So I don't know. All right, no reflections. Couple more here. No, just one more. This one I used to say only applies to men, but last year a girl in the class, but no, that applies to women too. So I'm not going to question it, of course, when you see what I'm going to say. The other rule: do not urinate into the wind.
That's just common.
No question. Yeah, it's just a hygiene thing, right? Not about washing your hands, but just not do it into the wind. All right, so here's my theory about, because some of these maybe, okay, they want to preserve people in the cult and so don't walk on the roadways and all that, that'd be a good idea. But some of these are so weird and don't make any sense at all. It makes me think that it's a good litmus test as a cult leader. If you see people like struggling and desiring and trying to live out these crazy rules and trying to keep themselves in line with these rules, believing that they want to stop this cycle of reincarnation, and you see them and you know that they're really living it, you know you have those people. Like you can quickly see like who are the true believers. Who do you really have under your spell? Who do you really have believing? And I think that might kind of be some people who might not be quite so committed, and they would notice that as well. So
It's a common phenomenon among cults, that they make strange rules for no apparent reason,
Yeah.
other than they need to know if you will follow them.
who's right? Who's a true believer?
Those usually do perceive armed conflict.
Well, I think like with the people from the People's Temple in California that moved to Jonestown, Guyana, and where the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" came from. Yeah, I mean that's I saw that in the movie that they made. I don't know why they would make it up like that, but of course, is it true? Okay, I had never heard that before, and then I'm used to remembering that in that movie. Pretty good movie, but yeah, I mean, it added some drama to the. I was going to say we're not enough drama already with the whole. But I know that. What was I going to say about that? What was I saying before that? Oh, about Jonestown, the people, so they went down there. And, I mean, obviously he had virtually all but a few under his complete spell. I mean, they all knew what they were drinking. They all knew what they were being injected with. Some of them, the children were injected with this
But we did
poison.
tell them that if they didn't, they would be shot.
Right, there were people who escaped, who managed to get into the jungle and got away. Just a handful of people, though. I mean, literally maybe 5 or less, But I mean, I remember as a kid, like, my parents used to get Time magazine, and the cover of Time magazine was aerial photo, like from a helicopter. And I remember even when that Time magazine came out, at first they didn't realize that people had, of course, it would take them quite a while, like 800 or 900 people that, committed suicide at the same time. And that they were, it took a while to serve everyone this Kool-Aid, And the people would lay down and they would die, and the people were laying down on top of other people. So what they were seeing, even in those photos, is not even the completeness of the tragedy. As they started to, lift up bodies, there might be 1 or 2 more bodies like underneath there. So the aerial photos don't even do it justice as far as how horrible it was. But I mean, yeah, if you got people standing in line to drink a cyanide-based Kool-Aid, that's you've got them. And of course, at that point, you're losing everything. And I think that Leader shot himself. Just before this, right? Just moments before, the senator was taking people with him that wanted out. Yeah. And not a congressman from California. Yeah, Ryan, I think. He was a really well-respected, U.S. congressman. Went down there to check them.
Yeah, U.S.
Ryan, yeah. And he went down there with his assistant, his legislative assistant, who I think ended up running for that seat and won it after. And there was NBC, I think, or anyway, one of the 3. We only had 3 networks back then. One of the networks, a photographer, a photojournalist, was killed. It's actually kind of. He kept filming until the very end. I think he knew it was. There's no escaping. People are surrounded you with, machine guns. He kept filming, and then at some point the camera just falls on the ground. So, anyway, folks don't always have great endings, But
4 other people, and they shot a representative, Jesse Spire, 5 times and left her for dead, but she survived.
So, okay. So she was also a U.S. representative? I thought thought she became one later, but okay,
She may,
she's still alive. I've seen her interviewed. But
it's not entirely clear.
that's okay. That's okay. It was just a horrible thing. But yeah, that's the kind of, this cult-like activity is, a lot of times leads to this kind of, like you said, armed conflict, once they're starting to test people's loyalty. And I think the people who drove out out to the airstrip to kill those, they then came back to the compound and drank the Kool-Aid after they did all that, so it's, he had them somehow. I don't know what spell he had on them, but
She laid there 22 hours before they waited for help to arrive.
can you imagine? And not knowing if, those guys are gonna come back with it, and make sure they did a good job, and, yeah, that was horrible.
9 others were shot, but only 5 others died. They were not very good assassins.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. Well, of course, David Koresh, that was horrible. And that involved children as well. That was not about money. It turns out that was, he was having sex with underage girls and with, taking wives from other men, sleeping with other, but other men couldn't do what he was doing if he got to. So I don't know if they made a whole lot. They weren't sporting money as far as I know. That's always bothered me because David Koresh was a musician, and he went there in Waco. He went to Austin almost every weekend to go see bands down on 6th Street by the university there. That's a great, if you ever go down there, let's hear some good music, that's pretty, and he could have been arrested like outside of one of these clubs on any given Saturday night. They could have just in the parking lot waited by his car and arrested him. But there seemed to be some need to make more of a show of it, and that didn't turn out so well in the beginning, and then it turned out terrible in the end. So, but he was a fairly well-known figure within Waco, and I guess he was seen frequently in Austin as well. That always bothered me. It could have handled that better, but I don't know about things like that. Okay, let's talk about the map. What time is it?
8:57.
Maybe subconsciously I just stalled a little bit these cult stories. Subconsciously, I really wanted to tell you those stories in order to avoid the mathematics part of the thing. Yeah, he was pretty good at, see? You hear the rest of the story and you're like, oh yeah, the triangles. Hypotenuses. Is that the plural? Hypotenuse? What's the plural? Hypotenuses? Hypotenuae. That's because of the Greek. That would be right. How many hypotenuae have you measured today?
Yeah. Mitt Romney's dad was born in Mexico. Mitt Romney spent a lot of time here as a child. It's like one of the biggest Mormon settlements.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they're converts to the faith, or
I think it was just people from Utah that really
okay.
spread the faith.
So they maybe as a mission went down there and okay.
And then it's like a kind of-
So but his dad was a U.S. citizen. His dad ran for president too,
Yeah.
and was governor of Michigan. He was governor of I think Michigan.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney's got a few states that he claims, by the way, Utah now, but he also was a governor of Massachusetts, and but grew up in Michigan, I think. That's actually pretty good politics to do that, probably. Kind of spread yourself out a little bit. You can go to those towns. I remember when George Bush Jr. was running he was running as a Texan, and someone said, yeah, but actually you're not a Texan. You were born in Maine, because Texans are kind of picky. Like you can't be a transplant and you can't become a Texan. You got to be born there. That's you're not really a Texan. You're born in Maine. And his answer was, and now I miss these Bushisms, he said, well, the reason I was born in Maine is only because that's where my mom was when she had me. You can't argue with that. What are you going to say? Well, that's not true. Yeah, it was a great line. It was actually, he had a lot of, as I look back on him, I think, I thought it was stupid at the time, but no.
I've heard so many conflicting reports. Some people say he's really short.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. And then how do you measure that? I don't know.